Hi everybody, today I'm going to be attempting to fit all of these various parts to my brand new Hinderer XM-18. I just did the unboxing video and I realised as soon as I'd finished it that there was some stuff I forgot to mention. There was in the box a Hinderer sticker, there was in the box a card saying it was hand assembled and tuned by Kim, and there was this little bag which now has Teflon washers in it but previously had these spacers and the phosphor bronze washers as well. So that stuff also came in the box. Now, it's the first time I'm ever taking apart one of these knives. I do not know how long this is going to take me. If you do not want to see all of the unbuilding and rebuilding process, please skip to like the last minute. It will be quite long. If it works at all, this video might not even make it onto YouTube because I don't know if it's going to go particularly well, but we'll see. So, without any more fuss, I'll slide this down that way. And we'll get started. So first things first, I want to remove the clip and filler tab, which will allow the knife to lay flat on the mat. I'm going to be putting all the parts I take off of the knife off to the left hand side of the screen. All of the parts that I'm putting on the knife, as you saw, are over here. And all the parts that I'm taking off the knife and will be putting back on it, I'm going to put off the screen to the top or leave at the top of the screen somewhere in that region. Or at least that's the plan just now. But like I said, I don't really know how this is going to go, so I'm kind of going to be making it up on my own. There we go. Clip and filler tab removed. So let's give the handle screws a try. By the way, in case you're wondering, it was a Phillips number 1 I used to remove the clip and filler tab screws, and I'm now going to be using a 5/64 hex bit to remove the handle screws. That one came out very easily, and so did that one. Those are almost too easy to remove. I'm not complaining just now, of course, because I want to remove them, but yeah, those were really rather loose from the factory. So there we go, handle screws are out. Give it a little shake, I should get the standoffs out. Oh, yeah. There we go, that's all of the handle screws. 2 of the standoffs. I don't really want to take all the standoffs out just yet, though. So all of these parts should be going off to this side. I don't know yet if I'm going to use these handle nuts on the cut. I think I just decided, yeah, I think I am going to use these handle nuts. Put them in the other way around, because that looks very nice. So I think I will continue to use these, we'll at least leave them here for just now. Big screw for the pivot, so I have the biggest flathead screwdriver I could find in our house, and I mask it taped over the pivot, over the tip of the screw. That's what I mask it taped over. And I need the homemade spanner bit for the other side, which hopefully fits. It does fit, wonderful. This is going to be a slightly awkward thing for me to try and do under the camera, but I will do my best. There we go. It's coming apart. Admittedly, I shouldn't have done it in quite this order, but we've started now, so we'll keep going. It's still free spinning at the moment. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to take this out from under the camera for a second or two, folks, so I can try and do this a little bit easier, I hope. Kind of going to hold it between my legs, and then I can use a hand for each side of the pivot, and hopefully that will work. Seems to be working. Yeah, that's definitely working. It is unfortunately a very long pivot screw. This is not a great bit to do out from under the camera, but we're getting there, we're getting there. There we go, pivot screw removed. You can see it is indeed a very long pivot screw. And I think that bit's going back in. And there we go, the whole knife more or less completely disassembled. We will definitely be putting the female side of the pivot back in. We'll definitely be putting the liner back in because I don't have a replacement for it. That should still be over here. G10 scale we will not be putting back on. Bearings we will also not be putting back in. They can go over here as well. Right. Honestly, at this stage, it looks really good. It looks really nice. Sometimes on cheaper knives, inside the knife, you see some nasty, damaged and scratched up bits and that kind of thing, but there's not a bit of that here. I certainly wouldn't expect any of that on a knife of this price, but it's still nice that there isn't any of it. So I'm going to now swap to a 1/16 hex and remove, or try to remove, the lock bar insert screw. This one alarms me a little bit because you shouldn't really remove it. I've been told though that it is pressure fitted in and that I shouldn't worry about replacing it with this black one. There we go. It appears I shouldn't worry about it. That's the lock bar insert screw in. First new bit to go on the knife. Now we're going to attempt to replace this lock bar stabilizer, which means using this tiny hex wrench, which I think is 0.05 inch, something along those lines. There is the lock bar stabilizer off. There's our new lock bar stabilizer and our new lock bar stabilizer screw. There we go. Yeah, that looks very nice so far, in my opinion anyway, for a knife that just has a few parts on it. Now we should be able to start rebuilding this knife up. For that, I think, well, I've got some decisions to make first, I guess. We're going to be using these spacers and then phosphor bronze washer like that. And then obviously the blade. I definitely don't have a replacement one of them anywhere. And then spacer and phosphor bronze washer. So that's this piece here built up how it should be. However, I will be going for black standoffs, of that I am sure. The question is what handle nuts, that's what I'm trying to say. So I want, and I think for now I'm just going to go with these black ones. Come on. There we go. Yeah, okay. I was warned about this, but I managed to forget. These handle nuts do just fall out if you don't have some kind of pressure on them, so you should really put them in and lay the knife down like that. Now, standoffs. There we go. Black standoffs. All nice and easy. Liner. If you didn't see that there, I just pushed the lock out of the way. It takes pressure off the blade. Often makes it a lot easier to fit a liner or a lock side, and this is one of those cases. It did indeed make it a lot easier to fit the lock side. Yeah, everything seems to be okay in there. So first things first, I'm going to put in some handle screws to stop the whole thing falling apart. Swapping back from my 1/16 hex to my 5/64 hex for this. I'm going to back the screw out first until I feel it drop into the start of the threads, and then thread it in. And I'm going to do the same here. Back it out, feel it drop in, tighten it up, very nice. And the same here. Back it out, feel it drop in, and tighten it up. Lovely. The black screws actually look very nice on this side. I may just stick with them. You gotta get the pivot screw in. Now, Hinderer recommends that you run your knife essentially completely dry as in no lubrication or anything along those lines. I intend to take his advice. The one thing he does say, however, is some blue Loctite on the pivot screw. I may well do that, but unfortunately I only have this bottle of blue Loctite at the moment and none of the stick stuff, which is far easier to apply. So to save me making a mess of myself and my table, on camera at least, I've decided to leave that for the time being. So everything's back together, but the blade is definitely off center. Give it a little bit. That was a bit of a concerning noise. Well, it's a concerning noise. It seems to work. Geez, that is stiff. That's way too stiff. Was quite a concerning snapping noise there, but the blade is now suddenly centered. The action is currently terrible. Back the pivot out just a little bit more. Blade is now off center and the action is getting there. So we're going to dial this back in just a little bit. It's back to being way too stiff. So we want to turn it back out a bit. Still too stiff. Still too stiff. That's not bad. Definitely takes quite a bit of shuggling to close, but you'd expect that because it's on phosphor bronze. Too much play in the closed position. A little bit of play in the open position. Needs to be a little tad tighter than that. It's definitely opening and shutting a little bit better. And the blade's fairly centered, maybe just a tiny little touch more on the pivot there. And it certainly deploys okay. The record, I knew the action was going to be nowhere near as good as it was earlier when it was on bearings. That's just the nature of phosphor bronze. Yeah, that's still going to require a little bit of tuning, but I think for now we'll just get the clip and filler tab put on. So this filler tab, for anyone, well, I mean, all of you really shouldn't know at this point. Up this way it reads my initials, that's LW. Up the other way it reads my girlfriend's initials, MP, Miriam Poller. Shouldn't really have said her name on the internet like that, but oh well, I hope she's okay with it. There we go. I'm going to put that filler tab in there. And tighten that down. Pocket clip. And 2 pocket clip screws. There. Nice and snug. And this one nice and snug. There we go. Okay, so now the last thing to do is to try and get this action better sorted out. So we'll loosen off the pivot a little bit more. Let's actually open the knife. Get it in its locked open position. And we will loosen off. Will we? Which blade do we have here? Let's give it a little tighten with the blade in the open position and see what that does for us. Blade centering's good, but the action is terrible. For those of you who haven't done much in the way of knife disassembly, this is often the most fiddly stage, is just getting the pivot tension perfect, and given all the changes that we just made to the knife, I wouldn't expect it to be completely perfect straight away. And the action, of course, being on phosphor bronze, should only really get better with time. It should. Wear on the phosphor bronze, and over time the phosphor bronze washers essentially polish up. The action should just get better. You know, for a knife on phosphor bronze, it's relatively drop shutty already, even though I don't think we are quite right with the pivot tension just yet. We're certainly getting close. Well, it's certainly flipping. It's not flipping perfectly. I may, just for the sake of time, end the video there. Do the final little bit of tuning up on my own. Yeah, the action is still not quite right. It's a little scoosh further back. Blade centering's not great. Anyway. Yeah, I'll do some last adjusting and stuff on this off camera and try and get it all tuned up nicely. I'm not entirely sold on these black screws down here. I may yet swap them out for the silver from the other side. In fact, I will. In fact, I'll do that right now, or at least attempt to. I don't know how it's going to go. I have kind of a plan for how to do this, because it does mean putting in the screws and filler tabs backwards. But I think if I do it this way, leave the standoffs in place, drop the screw out from one side at a time, put the black screw in the other side. Yeah, that'll work, I think. That is now just respinning, but I can fix that with a bit of tape in a second or two. Let's do this one. Unscrew it a bit, use the screw to push the back out, there we go. Just a little nudge. Handle nut comes out, handle nut goes back in through the other side. Flip the knife over. Front side handle screws are now going on the back, and the handle nuts, which usually go in from the back, which usually go in from the front, are now going in through the back. But it's going to allow us to get this nice carbon fibre and silver contrast on the front. So I'm going to put it together like this, and that might be how it stays. But the wonderful thing about it being a Hinderer is I can swap all this stuff out whenever I choose. So there we go, folks. I think that's going to be the end of this video today. I think that's how my Hinderer Knives XM-18 will end up looking. And I'll do a little bit of fiddling about with pivot tension stuff on my own to get the action just quite perfect, but it's not terrible at the moment. So I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you very much for watching if you made it to the end. Well, if you didn't, thanks for watching anyway. See you later. Bye.